So in our last video, we pointed out that science could not make the empirical, the sensible world known for certain because of the nature of subjectivity, that you could never prove, right, that there was a correlation between what you perceive and some kind of objective or external reality, right? Also, we said that it didn't make a lot of rational sense to say that just because something can't be uh, measured by science, something can't be perceived with the five senses, that it doesn't exist, right? So there's a couple of reasons why it would not be wise to say that we can know reality fully and certainly through the scientific method. Although, if that were true, that would kind of give us a security that would fulfill a psychological need for certainty, wouldn't it? And there are certain schools of scientific thought, not all of them, but there are some schools like scientific materialism that say just that, that say that if you can't empirically and objectively verify something, right? If you can't prove it based on shared and common observation, right, then it doesn't exist. Right? And number one, they seem to ignore the fact that there's no common empirical objective way to prove a correlation between our perceptions and reality. So that, even in the realm of the empirical world, it is an act of faith. It's a belief that we hold for good reason, but we can't prove for certain, that allows us to assume a correlation between our perceptions and reality. So the point is that science itself is dependent on faith in a correlation between our perceptions and reality. And number two, just because something is not measurable through the scientific method, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? Just because something is beyond perception, our perception, doesn't mean that it's not real. Okay. So, when it comes to empirical sense data, right, things that are perceptible through the five senses, we can prudently validate reality based on a common experience, right? So although I technically can't, prove with certainty that a bird exists because all of us see the bird, we can say that we can validate that reality, right? I know we are making an assumption, right, that that there is a correspondence between our thoughts and reality. I'm not just dreaming this, or I'm not plugged into a matrix somewhere, right, and reading a simulated reality that I don't know about, right? We can assume that it's real, and we should. It is prudent. We have good reason to do that, right? Right? We have faith that there is correspondence between our perceptions and reality for good reason, right? I'm not encouraging anyone to drop that faith or drop that assumption. I think we should make that assumption. That's how it works, right? With things we can sense with our senses, right? Things that we hold in common, right? Like we all see the bird, or we all smell a common smell, or we can all, touch the elephant, right? As in the famous story of the elephant and the blind man and the elephant, right? We can do these things with our senses, right? You can all hear me talking, right? So the sound must be real, right? That's the way we do it with sensible or empirical reality. And that makes sense. And that's a good way to validate our experiences. However, validating experiences of the transcendent or God is not as simple, right? Why? Because these are subtle subjective experiences. They're not something we sense with the five senses. It's something that we feel, right? Or something we know or intuit, right? Internally. It's not something that's can be shared in the objective sense. and these experiences are experienced in different ways at different times, right? So with sense experience, usually everybody will experience the same thing at the same time, right? So sense experience, if I see a bird and I say, look over there, everybody says, oh, I see the bird, right? I mean, unless it flies away or something. If the bird's just standing there, we can all see it, right? But with transcendent experience, it's not usually like that. It's different. People feel different things at different times in different measures, right? So with the transcendent experience, people usually experience them in different ways, in different degrees, and at different times. For example, if 9 people with good vision are all looking at the same spot, they'll usually either see a bird there, or they all won't see a bird there, right? It makes it really easy to say, hey, there is a bird there, or there isn't, right? You can say, hey, that bird is real. We all see it, right? That's really easy. That's nice. But let's say 9 people are watching the sunset, and one of them feels that in watching the sunset, through the sunset, they feel like the whole universe is just an endless sea of love, right? That's represented by the heart. Sorry. That's represented there by the heart with the 3 fires, right? This person's really feeling it. They're really having an extreme kind of transcendent experience. And let's say, another one feels a deep sense of union with nature, right? You got your 2 stars here. They just feel at peace, and they feel like, oh, we're all connected, And then other two just feel nice, They might feel just a little something, like a feeling, like just real subtle feeling, like everything's okay, or this is some meaningful experience. They don't really have a lot of thoughts about it, but it's just something subtle in their experience, right? Very subtle. And then, but 4 of the people or 5 of the people, the majority of the people, they don't feel anything at all. They're just like, oh, okay, there's a sunset. Like, that is just different colors, right? What's for dinner? I mean, maybe you've had this experience. Have you ever, like, gone on a hike or something and had some kind of transcendent experience and just felt like a sense of peace or unity with things or something, right? And then you go again and you're like, yes, I'm going to get that same feeling. And you're sitting in the same spot at the same time of day and nothing. What happened? You know, right? But now think about this. What if later in the week, one of the persons who felt nothing at the sunset, they're holding their child in their arms, and all of a sudden, as they're holding their child in their arms, they feel that their life is not just a series of unconnected random events, but a meaningful part of something greater. They just feel this meaning of life, and it's just very strong and very like comforting feeling in this case, right? They're having a transcendent experience, right? Again, kind of by themselves, right? Kind of an interior experience, right? Not at the same time as everybody else in the same place, in the same way. Right? What does that say about the existence of meaning? So, what I want to say about the transcendent is that just because not everyone experienced something, or not everyone experiences it in the same way at the same time, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? Again, people experience the transcendent different ways at different times. It's not as easy to validate as gross reality, things that are perceived by the senses, right? The so-called external, right? But it doesn't mean that it's not a real and legitimate part of the human experience. It doesn't mean that it's imaginary, or it doesn't mean that it's not as real as gross experience. So, conclusions from this whole series on science and belief in the transcendent God. Number one, the belief that the transcendent God exists cannot be proven or disproven through science, right? It's not about science. Why? Because science is based on observation of empirical sense data, and the transcendent or God is not perceptible through those 5 senses. At some point, science has to have the actual observable data. Even if it's 99.9% math and theory, you have to come to the point where you say, okay, how can we prove this? And get repeated results from the same using the same variables. So it doesn't apply to the transcendent. Science is purely agnostic. Through science, the transcendent cannot be known. It cannot be known whether it exists or not. Now, number two, science can help us understand the truth about the empirical, sensible aspects of reality. Science is good. It can help us know the truth, right? Catholic Church actually kind of started science in a way, and was the patron of science for uh, the beginning of the scientific movement. Number three, science itself needs the faith that there is correspondence between perception and reality, right? So science is not a faithless activity. It's not something based on pure reason, right? Or certainty, right? Or certain proof. No, there in itself there is this little leap, this little jump we make, right? There is an act of faith involved in it. Now, most importantly here, belief about our faith in the transcendent, faith in God, should be supported by science. It should not contradict science or reason. So if there's a contradiction between science and our faith belief, then one of them is off. It could be bad science, or it could be misunderstanding about the nature of the transcendent. Again, now I'm talking about a contradiction, right? Should not contradict. Neither science, which should be based on reason, or reason itself. They should be, faith should be supported. Faith in the transcendent should be supported by both science and reason. And finally, it's not irrational or scientific to believe in a transcendent reality. Now, if you would say you can prove the existence of a transcendent reality, that would be irrational and unscientific. You say I can prove it with certainty, right? Just like it would be irrational or unscientific to say that you could prove that the transcendent reality or God didn't exist. But it is not irrational or unscientific to believe in a transcendent reality.